So the first thing I want to talk about, little tips that make QuickBooks easier to use. So this is going to be a lot of shortcuts and hotkeys and things like that to get from point A to point B. And by the way, I see somebody's hand up. I see that, hold on, let me look, see who, oh, nope, their hand's down again. Okay. So I was going to ask you if you needed any help. Oh, I see another hand up. Hold on. Helvia, if you have any questions, I see your hand is up. If you have any questions, you can type them into the questions area, or okay, there you go. You took your hand down. Just making sure. So the first thing, little tips that make QuickBooks easier to use. So the first thing I want to show you are hotkeys and shortcuts. So one of the things that makes any program easier to use are keyboard hotkeys and shortcuts. And basically it just means that instead of using your cursor to sort of move all over the place, and you're really limited in how quickly you can move from one place to another, because you can only go as fast as your hand and your eyes and all of that, you know, is instead using your keyboard as much as possible. Now, I think most of us already know that just based on our use of other programs, right? But in QuickBooks, we have a lot of those same hotkeys and shortcuts. And some of these hotkeys and shortcuts are browser dependent. So like Shift, if we wanted to like print something out, we can still potentially use the built-in shortcuts for our browser, like Control P. It's still going to print things, right? But QuickBooks itself has its own keyboard shortcuts. And if I press Control Alt question mark, that brings up this window where I can see all of this. Oh, this is cool. They actually updated this. So these are our keyboard shortcuts. And the way to get to it is Control. You need to press Control Alt or Option and then question mark. It's got that right here. Control Alt or Option question mark. And then these are all of the keys that you can use for your shortcuts. So like if I press Control Alt or Option I, that's going to bring up my invoice. So let's just try it. I'm using a PC, so for me it's Control and Alt. There we go. There's the invoice. Now I can also make this invoice go away. If I press Escape on my keyboard, it goes away. I don't have to click around, move around to the X or anything like that. And one of the nice things about these shortcuts is that not only do they bring up new transactions, but they also have functions within them. So if you wanted to save a transaction, you've got options right here, like save and close is Control Alt or Option D, save and send, Control Alt or Option M. So you could bring up an invoice, right? And if you'll notice, I'm using my hand here. I know you can't see my hands. Up at the top left, we're in the customer field, right? So I can type in a customer's name, press tab. It brings me into the customer email field, and I can tab all throughout this window, right down into products and services. See, I'm not using my cursor at all. And I can then type in whatever it is that I'm charging them for. Tab over to the quantity. There's the quantity, rate, amount. If we've got everything typed in, I can then press Control, Alt, or Option M, and I don't even have to click Save and Send or anything like that, right? And now I can email this thing off. There we go. Oh, it just keeps on refreshing that. There we go. So that's save and close. So you don't even have to use your cursor in a lot of these cases if you don't want to. If you like those keyboard shortcuts, they can help you out. Now, Helvia wrote for Mac. Yeah, so for Mac, Helvia, it's again it's Control Alt or Option. So if you're on a Mac, you'd use that Option instead of the Alt, right? So and these are all the same for the Mac. You just use the Option instead of the Alt. Now, in addition to that, whenever you're on a transaction, like if I'm on an invoice here, there are a couple of little things that I can do that make my use of QuickBooks a little bit faster. So right here, for instance, in the invoice date, and this also goes for due date and a lot of other places, I can, of course, type in a date. I can type in 05/16/2020, press tab, and QuickBooks knows where to put those forward slashes, right? But one of the best ways to enter a date is to use date shortcuts. So if I wanted to enter a transaction that happened towards the beginning of a month, what I can do is on my keyboard press M, and it takes me to the beginning of the month because month starts with the letter M. If I press M again, it takes me back a month, back a month, back a month, back a month. Every time I press it, back a month. So I can also go to the end of a month, press H on my keyboard, takes me to the end of the month. Press H again and again and again and again, forward a month every time because H is the last letter of the word month. This also works with years and weeks. So I can go to the beginning of a year with Y. I can go back years every time I press Y because Y is the first letter of the word year. I can go to the end of the year, press R on my keyboard. R, 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 R. Sound like a pirate, but really what's happening is we're going to the end of the year every time I press R. And again, it's because R is the last letter of the word year. This also works with weeks. If you press W, 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 and then I press K over and over again, takes me forward or backward because W and K are the first and last letters of the word week. Now, what if I just want to go forward by a day or two or backward by a day or two? I can use the plus buttons on my keyboard and also the minus buttons on my keyboard. And if I'm tired of all this time traveling, I've been in this time machine for way too many years now, I can press T on my keyboard to go back to today because T is the first letter of the word today. Now, one last little tip. Whenever you're in any field with an amount, you can use what's called quick math to very quickly add, subtract, multiply, and divide numbers with each other. So if I'm filling out an invoice or a check or really anything with a customer or a vendor, what I can do is instead of having to start another line anytime I wanted to add multiple things onto it or grabbing my calculator or something like that, instead, what I can do is just put in a mathematical symbol. So if I wanted to add something, I press plus, a number, press tab, and it adds it up for me. This also works with minus. So if I wanted to subtract something, I'm doing pretty easy stuff right now. Let's do something a little bit harder. I'm going to press Shift 8, which is a multiplication sign. Actually, it's an asterisk, but that's how QuickBooks interprets it. Let's enter something crazy right there. Press tab. I definitely wouldn't have been able to do that in my head. And now we're going to do something even harder. Let's divide this number. So let's press forward slash to divide some kind of crazy number. Oop, I'm not going to put any letters in there. It's not algebra. And then press tab, and then we get our result. So there's lots of little things that you can do here and there to better utilize QuickBooks, be a little bit more efficient with it. And those little tips and tricks are there to help you out with that.